This is your host, Laura Winters, the heart-led pathfinder, intuitive energy healer, speech-language pathologist, and owner of Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC. Welcome to Miracle in Time, a mini-series podcast that brings you the stories of beautiful humans exploring the synchronicities, blessings, and miracles within our perception of time. It illustrates that events are not just happening to us, but for us. Life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but it is a miracle in time. As a disclaimer, this podcast contains general information about various topics and medical conditions and is for educational purposes and inspiration only. Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC is not responsible or liable for the accuracy of information contained in this podcast. The information contained in this episode is the personal views of the host and guests, respectively. This podcast is not meant to replace the advice of your healthcare provider and is not intended to prescribe, prevent, treat, or diagnose disease. You assume all risks when you continue this episode. Dr. Jake Gerard grew up in Idaho. He served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Iowa. When he returned home, he married his high school sweetheart. He attended Idaho State University, and then he attended the University of Louisville School of Dentistry and graduated in 2008. Since then, he has completed countless hours of continuing education in many areas, including implants, sleep dentistry, orthodontics, ALF, laser therapies, and myofunctional therapy. He is part owner of 2 dental practices and a sleep-focused practice. He has 5 kids. As a family, they dirt bike and mountain bike and love the outdoors. He loves helping his patients, especially the little ones, and educating all his patients on total body wellness. I hope you enjoy this miracle in time. Hi, Dr. Jake. Thanks so much for talking to me today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
So this is your first podcast, right?
It is. Yep, it is.
I'm so excited for this. So Jake and I met at the Make the Connection course in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was really funny because my first guest, Lauren, who I stayed in the hotel with, she sat next to Dr. Jake. And at that first break where she had this kind of freak out, and she had told me, I'm not sure that I really believe in the fascia stuff. And then Dr. Jake was talking to her about it as well. So she came out and was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? What, you're saying this? Dr. Jake is saying this? What do I even believe anymore? And so it was really beautiful to see this, to see that incorporated in the course, like content and the things that Dr. Jake was able to say and contribute, because there's a piece of that, the fascia in there, but I think he dove a little bit deeper, and I was like, oh, yay, I really like this. I enjoy this. And so I wanted to bring him on to talk a little bit more about the fascia and some of the things that he's able to do in his office to help people along on this journey.
Yeah, excited to be here. And yeah, Lauren, that whole group was fun. That was a fun experience for me. So it's awesome.
I love it. Okay, so can you introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my name is Jake. I grew up in Idaho, and that's where I currently practice. I'm in Boise, Idaho, so actually Meridian, which is like kind of a suburb of Meridian. So Idaho is home, love the mountains, and knew I wanted to come back here. So grew up on a small farm, hobby farm, did all the farm stuff, animals, all that stuff. I served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, served in Iowa in the Midwest. So it's interesting. I keep going back to the Midwest. I did school in University of Louisville. I took the class in Cincinnati. I keep ending up in the Midwest. So I've lived in every I state, so that's kind of fun.
That is fun.
So yeah, I served a 2-year mission, returned home, married my high school sweetheart. We have 5 kids, my oldest of which just got married about a month ago. So that's navigating, that's new. So they grow up fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I decided to do dentistry. Love working with people, love working with my hands, building stuff, troubleshooting. And so that just felt like a good fit for me. And so went to dental school, University of Louisville, and graduated 2008 and came here to Boise. So
Wow.
yeah.
Now, when you started practicing, what did your practice look like?
So I joined with my brother-in-law. So we have currently we have a couple practices, but it's just when I first came out of school, it's a general dentistry. Just had a lot of bills and needed to start paying those, and so a lot of it was just your normal everyday dentistry stuff: fillings, implants, crowns, dentures, all those normal things. About a year into practice, Jameson Spencer, he's kind of a guru mentor in the sleep dentistry world. He's in our area, and we went out to lunch and talked a lot about sleep and got me interested in treating sleep. And so worked a lot with adults, helping them with sleep apnea, CPAP failures, doing sleep appliances. And then that transitioned and just snowballed into all the different things that I'm doing now. So one thing leads to another. There's no coincidences. So
Exactly. And that's what, this podcast is about, miracles. And I think that, yes, these coincidences or not coincidences happen and lead you on the path that you need to be on to help truly help as many people as you can while we're here.
yes, for sure.
So the cool thing, so like, when did you start learning about the fascia? Because there's, I think once you get kind of into holistic areas, you do learn a lot more about that. But so was it the dentistry stuff that led to the fascia, or was there an experience that you had with your own health or something that kind of led you there?
Yeah, I think so for me, again, so got into the sleep stuff and then started thinking, I have all these adults. There's got to be a way we can resolve these and not have these problems as adults. So how do we help the little ones, so that we don't have to do sleep appliances, CPAPs, all those things. And so kind of started down that road. I did a couple of sleep mini residencies. One of the guys I took a class from, a mini residency from, Dr. Allman, he talked a lot about, some arch development expansion, helping these kids. And so that took me onto the path of different preformed appliances, the healthy start, perfect start stuff. And I took an orthotropics mini residency from Dr. Bill Hang. He's pretty big name. Took some more ortho residencies with Brock Rondeau, and then did one with Dr. Lipskis in Chicago. And so just kind of went down this ortho route as far as how do we help these kids. And I knew that myofunctional therapy was a big part of these kids and the development and why they weren't developing very well. Heard Ben Moralia speak. So all these, when you get into certain realms of treatment, there's always kind of the same people talking about the same stuff. And so I've heard a lot of different people speak, and you kind of sift through that and see what works for you and what you like. And so as I went through all that, there was things I saw that I didn't quite like, or I thought, man, that's not just didn't feel right to me. And so, and always kind of had heard about ALF treatment. So I took some courses in ALF through Synergy Academy. I felt like if I wanted to learn ALF, I needed to go to the source. Dr. Nordstrom created the ALF in, I believe, like 1985 or so. And so I've taken some courses from him and through Synergy Academy, Dr. Tin Holder. And so that's when I really started to understand more kind of the function and fascia and neurology and all of those things and how they're all connected. And so, I mean, I did a lot with conventional orthodontics expansion, and I was still seeing some kids did really well with that, and some kids still had a lot of challenges and a lot of things going on. And so delve more into the development and what's natural, how do we help these kids naturally get there, and so in taking the ALF courses, they talk a lot about the fascia and the function and the neurology. And so Dr. Nordstrom's developed oral A's, and Dr. Tenholder created the baby lays, which is a similar sequence but on the super littles. And so that's where we talk a lot about that fascia and what the power of light and what that laser can do. And so that's, all those little events have brought me to where I am, and I've seen some pretty amazing things, and understanding the fascia, that it's, from tip of tongue to toes, plays a big part in everything we do. Even lately, I've done some courses with a physical therapy group, Applied Integrative Academy, AIA, and they talk a lot about ALF and the fascia and the whole body and how all that's connected and different compensations. And so it's been a long journey, but it's been a good journey. I'm seeing some pretty amazing things with all of that. So that's, I guess, a long way of how I got to understanding myo, and then taking the myo class with Mary Billings and Patricia and Diana Davidson, and trying to understand that function more. And so that's how we met. So yeah, no coincidences.
That's so wild. I mean, there's so much education that you had there. I mean,
Yeah.
Like
A lot.
a lot. And that's kind of interesting because when I was talking with the orthodontist that we go to, my boys see, I had kind of said, like, maybe I'm going to pursue a consultation after we'd already done, like, at the RPE, a consultation with the guy who does the original ALF. And he, like, very much advocated for himself in that he has, to be an orthodontist, you need you had this much more school and everything. And I was like, all right, we'll make some changes to the plan and we'll kind of stay there. But when you were talking, I was like, wait a second. So, like, even though you're just a dentist, and I'm not saying that as like just a dentist, right? Because, like, I'm sure you get that sometimes, but the amount of time, money, and energy and passion that you've had to put into this to be able to follow that rabbit hole as far down as what you did, and to be good and to change people's lives as you are, I mean, that says a lot as well.
Yeah, it's there's an investment there for sure. And I'd always, at one point, I'd thought about being an orthodontist, and I think there's some great orthodontists out there, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go down that path. One, because when I was in school, I'd had enough of school. I'm like, I can't do anymore. I need a break. But then it's funny because you get out of school and you do just as much continuing education and stuff, so it doesn't slow down. But I'd kind of had enough in school. I wanted to settle down somewhere, and I think training in some institutions, they kind of get stuck in their way, and so they don't always are on the forefront of things. And so I'm kind of grateful that I didn't go into an orthodontic thing, but was able to kind of find my way and find what I really like to do. There are certain things I don't like doing anymore. I don't like doing extractions anymore, and don't like doing root canals because I just don't anymore. So you find this path. And so if I had gone through an ortho route, I may not have learned the things that I've learned now, or it might have taken me longer, or just different path. And so I'm grateful that I chose to just, go the path that I've gone. And I still have a lot to learn. I think there's a lot I don't know. And when you start looking at these kiddos, there's so many things. There's gut health and vitamin D levels and vitamin Bs. And there's all these things that, are thrown at our kids. And so they've been kind of derailed and put on a different trajectory. And so my path, I guess, is trying to figure out, what is the best way to handle each individual kid. There's no one size fits all when it comes to these littles. And sometimes too, as parents, we need to love them too. I mean, I have 5 kids, and I look back and think, oh, if I would have known this. But when they know they're loved and you're caring for them, that goes a long ways too. So
Exactly. That's so true. And what I think about my journey is like, I kind of got into a lot of these things saying, I would like this to help heal my children or help give them a better life. And I found through the path that like, I found more and more about myself, and I can bring those things to them. A lot of times they're like, no, mom, I'm done. I'm like, okay. But each little thing that you learn, like recently, I don't know if have you heard of Human Garage?
I haven't.
So Human Garage is like a guy had started working on people in a garage in California, and he brought all these different modalities together because he himself was in a lot of pain. And so it was working for a while. He said he went on vacation and all his pain came back, and he realized this is not working. So he ended up creating these fascial maneuvers that's really has helped him get out of pain and is helping a lot of people. And their mission is to impact 1 billion people. It used to be 1 million people, and now it's 1 billion people. And so I've started doing this the last like week and a half. And so with what I know about the body and doing some of the body work, I've brought it to my middle son, who is the most physical one out of all of them. And he doesn't appreciate CFT because it's more gentle, which I do like. And so the fascial maneuvers are a little more hands-on and a little rough. And so he has loved it. And so he keeps coming back and saying, hey, Mom, can you do that thing on my leg? I'm like, okay. So we finally hit something that he appreciates and he wants. But you go on these rabbit holes. And like you did, coming back to, that is one thing that I talk to, especially Lauren, about, is like, we talk about the things, what should we be doing? And then eventually we just come to, God, we just have to keep loving them, because that's really what they need in order to succeed in this world. We can use them as this little test subject and do all these things, but like, they really just need the love from their parents.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I've tried different things on mine too. So yeah, but I think, yeah, like you said, when they know that you love them, and it's interesting when you're doing certain things, like when I've done the ALF or I've done an Orlays on a patient, especially the kiddos, I know I'm doing good when they come back and say, are we doing that today? Are we doing the Orlays today? Are we doing this? Because it feels good and they like it. And I think our kids need to play and they need to be active. And yeah, I think screens and social media have not done us good with kids. They need to play and get out. And so, Orlays and just ALF and those natural things help these kids to connect and figure out who they are. And then you can start to see some pretty cool progression and see them turn corners. And so it's super rewarding.
Yeah. Okay, so explain Orlays. Let's start here. Okay. What is Orlays and what can it help with?
Yeah, so Orlays is it's a laser light. So you use the Photona. So I have 2 different lasers that I use. I use the Photona Lightwalker, and I also have a Photona X-Pulse. I use my X-Pulse when I'm doing the babies, doing the baby lays. So Orlays, baby lays are kind of synonymous, a little bit of a variation in them as far as intensity of light. It's a 1064 nanometer wavelength, so it's a certain wavelength of light. And again, Dr. Nordstrom has developed this over many, many years. He had some ALF patients that weren't quite progressing like he had hoped or wanted them to. And so through using some of that Orlays and activating a lot of the neurology and opening up limbic windows into the brain and stimulating those emotion centers, he was able to see these kids do, make progress. So that wavelength is super important. And so it penetrates deep enough into that fascial layer to where it kind of helps melt or make that hyaluronic acid slippery. So you have hyaluronic acid that's around the fascia. And so a lot of times when there's a restriction, that hyaluronic acid is just real sticky, and so things don't slide and move. So that laser can warm things up, makes it slippery, and it allows things to move. So it helps to release that fascia, get things moving, but also I think just as important is that neurological component, activating vagus nerve and facial nerve, all that stuff, so that brain body can connect and function can happen. I mean, I've seen kids that are having a hard time doing a cave, or a suction hold, a tip to spot. I oralase, loosen up that fascia. I take away some of that tension that's under the tongue and in the face, and the tongue just goes up. And so, people say, oh, you need to have, a 45 millimeter wide palate, 40 millimeter wide palate to get the tongue up there. And I've seen narrower palates, and I oralase, and the tongue goes up and fits up in there. So I'm not so much in the numbers as I used to be, because I've seen different things happen. And I think when you have a tongue working well, that can help to develop. It's a natural expander, right? The tongue works. It's a muscle. Bone yields to muscle. So the oralase loosens that up, gets the hyaluronic acid moving, slippery, loosens that up. And then when the brain says, hey, I can move my tongue now, or hey, I don't have this gag reflex anymore because that feeling isn't weird anymore when you're touching my tongue. And so I've seen gag reflexes diminish. I've seen, babies start to nurse right away after the first session. They nurse better. They gain weight. They double burst size. I mean, there's just so many different things that happen. And so it's not just one thing that it does, but I think it does several things. But certainly allows a person to be able to do exercises a little easier. And as they do exercises, then that can hold, or the results last longer. So it's not a one and done like a lot of people want things to be. It's more of a therapy. And so it takes some time, again, working and exercising and keeping that. With the babies, it's awesome. It happens right away. And we do, half a dozen, 3-4 sessions, and feeding times are reduced. They're more, the feeding's more efficient. These babies gain weight, they start to function. And so it's super rewarding for me to see that happen. One question I'll get is, well, can I do this and not do a tongue tie release, or can I just do a tongue tie release first? And so, what I try to tell patients is it doesn't eliminate the need for a tongue tie. You still may need a lip or a tongue release. But what it can do is it can get the function going. It can get that tongue working, so that when you have to do a release, it's easier for a person to bridge that gap. So sometimes, you've heard stories where kids have these releases done and they spiral the opposite way. They go downhill and they can't feed very good, and they have these aversions and they have some challenges. And so I think that's where the neurological aspect of it really helps. You're helping these kids make that connection, so that things can work. If they've had a traumatic delivery or more traumatic delivery than normal or whatnot, they need some cranial help and they need some baby lace. So, in fact, right before I got on this call with you, this podcast, I did an exam on a new mom, 2 months old, baby, struggling a little bit. And so I was able to tell her about baby lace, and when they know that there can be some answers and it's not just them, right? A lot of moms feel like, oh, well, I don't produce, or it's my fault. And it's not always. And that's hard, Like I said, my wife breastfed, we've had 5 kids. And so, that's a special thing a mom gets to do, if they want to do that. And so if I can bridge that gap and help that connection, man, those babies just do really, really, really well. They can do really well.
So what are you doing with the oralase or baby lace to make it happen? And then what do they experience? Like, is there any discomfort, any pain, anything like that?
Yeah. So, excuse me. It's the way I explain it to people is it's just like when you go outside and you feel the warm sun on you, or a warm bath. That's what it feels like. It's just really warm. I have people respond in different ways. When I've done the adults, they can be really happy, almost kind of get giddy. So I have a gal that is treating me with biophoton. I don't know if you've ever heard of biophoton before, but that's another thing that's super cool. So I do some biophoton sessions, and she was excited, so I did some orlays on her, and she gets really giddy and really excited and just feels really good and feels like her brain is, she can think clearer. When she talks, her tongue moves easier. So people experience different things. I have some patients who will get emotional. They'll cry. There's this release of the trauma and emotion, and we try to create a safe place so that they can do that, so they can let that out. When I'm done, I usually leave the room and have my assistant sit with them for 10, 15 minutes and just let them have that moment, because that's an important moment to have. And so sometimes we see that. Sometimes we see people will kind of get the munchies. They want to go have some snacks and they want to eat. So there's lots of different things. So it's kind of fun for me to see the different reactions. So there's that. So I treat, I start on the arms, and I kind of that's kind of a titration for me. You know, how warm it is. I don't want to get too hot. I can adjust the power. And also, you know, there are some meridians and some acupuncture points that are in our arms that we're kind of hitting as we do that too. I treat the face. I treat sternocleidomastoid underneath the chin, forehead, cheeks, go around the lips. And then I go in the mouth and treat, you know, all in the vestibule, under the tongue, soft palate. If a kid has some bigger tonsils and I can see, I'll shine the light on the tonsils. There's some people who have seen some of those reduce a little bit after that. So, and then after I treat in the mouth, then I will treat like back of the neck and shoulders and kind of help relieve some of that tension that's held back there. Part of the orlays too is what's called Hensler. So it's a high intensity non-surgical laser release. So if someone's got like a pretty big knot in their shoulder or back, a real tight spot, I can hit that with a dose of the laser, and basically kind of just makes that knot just dissolve, just kind of goes away. And so patients will have this increased range of motion when they turn their neck. I don't do that on the kids because it can be a little spicy, and they don't like that. It hurts a little bit. But most of the adults are like, "Oh yeah, that's nice. hit that spot again," or they'll say, "Hey, hit this spot, or hit this spot, or hit this spot." So, so it really just kind of gets rid of that release and those tensions. And craniosacral therapy after massage therapy, those things are good to do within about a 24-hour period afterwards, because things are loosened up. The body workers can get things to move and loosen, and so those things just help. So people respond differently, but I haven't had a person say, "Oh, I don't like that, I don't want more." So it feels really good, and again, that neurology of it, that, you know, you're activating all that brain-body connection, and they know it. There's something about it that just feels good, and they want to enjoy that and have more of that.
Yeah, I know when I had first heard about it, I was like, I think I'm going to have to fly to you, and we're going to have to, I'll stay a couple days.
Yeah.
How soon after can we just keep going?
Yeah.
And flights there are ridiculously expensive. So, maybe if we do a road trip sometime.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and there are providers throughout the United States, but yeah, we'd gladly have you. Anybody wants to come.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's really, really great. Now, you said with the baby lace, maybe like 3-4 sessions, it seems to, you know, maybe it's doing its thing. How many for adults are we looking at normally?
You know, it kind of depends. It's a therapy, so I've done as many as half a dozen. I've done, you know, more than that. I've done less than that. It kind of just depends. Again, people want a one and done, and it's not a one and done. It's a therapy. So, you know, you can do it every week, every other week. So there's not really a set way of doing it. You're kind of looking at the person and how they're responding. Some people might need more than other people, might need it more often. So if I'm going to do a couple in a week, I normally like to do like a Monday and a Thursday. if I'm doing 2 in a week. But every week is good. I have a couple different locations, and so I'm every other week at locations. So it makes it a little bit trickier, but I try to do every other week if the patient wants to keep going, and that has seemed to work pretty well. Um, as they're doing myotherapy and doing different exercises and stuff, that helps things hold. And so usually I can, the results can last a couple of weeks. And again, that kind of depends on the patient and what they're doing. And like any therapy, it's if you're doing your part, it can last longer. But we've had some really good results, and it's fun to do.
Yeah. And they, when you're working with the fascia, it's like these layers of the onion. So, like you say, it's a treatment for every layer that we're going, that we're kind of unfolding, that you're revealing other things. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of just like what everybody says about the fascia. Once you get in deep, you're going to the next level. When you're healing, there's not a point in your life where you're actually healed, and that's the end result. You're constantly healing. So, you're learning more about yourself and your journey and all these different things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why, the massage therapy, those different things afterwards are so important. Like, I'm kind of restricted to, a certain area. And so being able to work with body workers after too, to help release some of that fascia that's, below the shoulder and necks is helpful too. Because again, you've got, it's all connected, and we got to have the whole body feeling good.
Yeah, for sure. So the other piece of this puzzle, because I haven't talked to anybody about expansion truly. So, but can you talk about the ALF? And I don't, it's definitely something different than the regular expander with the crank turn and everything. So can you talk more about that?
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot out there, so there's a lot of opinions. Like I said, I've been trained in different ways, a lot of conventional. Some people will say do it rapidly. Some people say do it semi-rapid. There's research that shows you need to split the suture. There's research that shows if you split the suture, you get some bony adhesions. And then from a cranial standpoint, that's not necessarily a good thing. You want that cranial motion. You want things to be able to move. And so, and when you're looking at the upper jaw, the maxilla, it's not just one bone all by itself isolated, right? You've got sphenoid and ethmoid and vomer and temporal. You have all these other bones. And so if you're doing something drastic with the maxilla, there's an effect other places. The physical therapy group we're looking with, they have a course called Body in the Sight. And so they talk a lot about, the maxilla and everything changes too fast, eyesight gets changed, and it can mess that up, and then that can change your equilibrium. And so anyways, whole rabbit hole you can go down that way too. And so I've kind of looked at it from, what's natural? How do we change the face, the jaw in a way that the body can handle, that's more natural? And so when I was doing conventional expanders, I was doing more of a semi-rapid or a slower way of doing it, just because I felt like that was better. I've had kids do really well with that. I've had other kids where, sleep things and other things weren't resolved, even though they are, X amount wide, and they still have things going on. And so that's just personal preference for me on what I've decided to do. Like I said, I think there's a lot of good people out there that are doing arch development and they're having success. I just, as I was on my journey, there was things I was wanting to do naturally. Like, how could we just do this where the body likes it and it's nice and it's the way God designed our bodies? I think we're divine beings, and there's got to be ways that when we turn certain switches, then we're going to go the way we need to go. And so that's kind of how the ALF works. So it's first and foremost, it's a neurological appliance. So again, you're trying to get the function right. And there are design aspects within the ALF, different omega loops and different things that are there to tell the tongue, hey, go here. This is where we want you to go. And this is, it's a certain wire that provides a certain kind of vibration and a movability to stimulate growth and function. And so Secondarily, it can be used as an orthopedic appliance. You adjust it a little bit, but a lot of times I've seen the tongue gets moving and it starts to move things, and I have to adjust my ALF to kind of keep up with what the tongue's doing to the rest of it. So first and foremost, it's a neurological appliance, getting the function right. And that's why I enjoyed the course with Mary and Patricia and Diana, because they get that, they understand that. And so that's why I chose that course, was because they understand it. And I was having a lot of patients saying, hey, how's my myo going? And I couldn't answer it confidently and say, well, it looks good. Or they'd come back and say, yeah, I'm done, I've graduated. And I'm like, but there's a lot going on still. And so, function is really high on that tier of things we need to do. And so the ALF is there to make that function more familiar and to help the body and the brain connect and say, this is what it should do. And I think having an authentically designed ALF like Dr. Nordstrom wants them to be is super important. He's had trial and error of a lot of different designs. And so there's no one design that fits everybody. You have to have certain pieces in certain places. And so that is a challenging part with ALF, is understanding those nuances and understanding what each person needs, because each person is individual. But I've seen some pretty amazing things. I think my message to parents would be, it's not fast. It doesn't get you there fast, but it gets you there, and it takes function and takes a collaboration with, craniosacral, cranio-osteopath, myofunctional therapy. It takes a team to help these kids kind of just see what they're missing and get them on a path. And so that's where I think that's what ALF does, is it helps to try to mimic nature. And we want to mimic nature and get our kids to a certain spot to where they're functioning and working really well.
That's really interesting. Even you talking about the wire itself and like the vibration, the frequency, that these are the things that we're trying to align and get our body in homeostasis so that we feel good and we're functioning correctly. And that's something that I hadn't even heard about or considered. So that is, I think for me, a really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. There's lots of nuances in it, and a lot of people see it and they're like, oh, it's just a little skinny wire with a couple loops in it, and but there's a magic to it. There's miracles to it, and that's what's so interesting. In all the classes that I've taken with Dr. Nordstrom, they're very spiritual experiences too. He dives in deep, and and he talks a lot about kind of his path and how he's guided, and so there's a lot to it, and it's not just a simple, here, I'm going to make this piece of plastic and throw it in your mouth, and we're going to turn it, and it's going to cure everything. There's some nuances there, and it is for me, has been challenging to learn. There's always something to learn, and there's a lot. Neurology is tricky.
Yes. Wow, that's really, really interesting. Man, I'm just processing all of that. Yeah. And I think that, and again, if you say that it is a spiritual experience, I mean, these brilliant people are being guided, like they're being divinely guided to the devices or to the procedures that they're doing or whatever that they're putting out there for people. And that's definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I always come back just energized and just think, wow, man, things are so much bigger than us. And if I can be a small piece of helping someone to be a little better and do better, then that's pretty awesome. So I don't get a lot of joy in doing a filling. I mean, I do them, but that's not what makes me click and feel good. So these other things are a lot better.
I love it. Yes. I'm just seeing,
yeah.
I'm just having this vision of God being like, nah,
Yeah.
for fillings.
They're like, that looks really pretty. You did a really good job on that.
I
Oh.
love it. Okay, so if people want to explore an ALF now, let's go even now. So typically, when we're talking about expansion, we're talking about children. But is there a piece of this for adults as well?
I think so, yeah. I've kind of focused what I want to do and what I want to learn on more of those littles. But ALF definitely is utilized in adults, not necessarily to arch develop, but I think it's there to help other ways. So, for instance, like this physical therapy group I'm working with, when they have a person who is occupying a certain hemisphere, or they're really crooked or wonky and they can't ground a certain way, a lot of times they need an ALF just as a support, to help that cranial complex, and then they can kind of get straightened out, and it helps them to feel grounded and to feel in themselves, I guess, so to speak. And that's what attracted me to them, is they were at an ALF conference and talked about what they wanted to do and what they were seeing. And so I've done some training with them. We have a physical therapist in our area that treats in our practice. When we have patients that need some help, she treats, and we do different appliances and add that. My oldest son, he's 17. He has no curvature in his neck, nor no lordosis at all. Super, super straight neck. And so I made him, I had the PT gal evaluate him, and his neck super tight, like no movement, like not how it's supposed to be. And so I made him a trauma release ALF, which has a certain design to it, certain crescents and omega loops. It's not an ALF for development, but it's for support and trauma. Anyways, after 2 weeks of wearing that, she assessed him, and his neck totally released everywhere. So he just moved. She could move him every which way. And so I took an x-ray a couple months later, and he still is kind of straight. But I know that Dr. Nordstrom has done some cases like this too, and it can take a few years to get some curvature there. But I think athletically it has helped him. He wears it when he's playing rugby. But his neck is totally released and has kind of let go. And all I did was put an ALF in. I didn't adjust it. I didn't do anything. I just put it in his mouth.
Wow.
So I think there's situations where those are important. There's stealth ALFs, bikini ALFs. There's different designs, and so some people, they get an ALF and it doesn't jive with them. I've talked to a couple people like that. I've been at classes, and one Dr. Nordstrom was evaluating, and another one I talked through via some connections. And sometimes you just have to have the right design of ALF too. Again, one size doesn't fit all, and you have to have certain design aspects that support that cranial complex and do certain things. But yeah, so our goal, the goal is to help people. And so definitely as an adult, you can use those. And I would say, if it gets your function going better and your tongue going where it should go, you'll start to see changes in that upper jaw, because the tongue's a muscle and it's moving things, right? So I don't think any sutures in our head are fused the way we've been taught for a long time. I think those things have some micro movements in them, and there's cranio-osteopaths that prove that and show that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, you can use it in a lot of different aspects. I've chosen to kind of focus mine on those littles, because I just, man, I love the little kids, and if we can get them happy, then that's just so rewarding for me.
Wow. And like you said, it's not just an appliance for the mouth or for expansion. It's a neurological device. And so that case study with your son, and I think this is a really good point that you make too, is that even though sometimes the structure is what it is, if the function is doing what it needs to do, then that's really great. That's really what we need to be working with, is the function and a good function of that. And that's function, really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. It was cool to see how quick it happened. And even the Tara, my PT, she was like, this is cool. So it's interesting when all the pieces kind of fall into place and you see that happen, because it really is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I would just remember from my past, like I used to work in ENT, and so I would get these people in for voice therapy, and when we worked on the function and how to actually use their voice, they would sound great. And if they could maintain that, they would sound great. But like if you did a video strobe and you looked in at their vocal cords, you're like, there's no way they could achieve that. Like I've seen some nasty looking vocal cords, and you're like, it's amazing what can come out when you're really setting your body up in the function where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
For
so
sure.
cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want one.
Most people do after we talk about it. So, yep.
I love it so much. Okay, so how can people find a true ELF provider? Because I know for a fact that there are some providers around, and even my son, we've talked that I think you call it a quasi ELF. It's not the original Derek Nordstrom type, but it's something similar. My son's in one now, and it's done really good things for him. But I think, like you say, like some of the sleep things are still not recovered. There's definitely some pieces of the puzzle that we need to explore more, and there's more that I need to do on my end as well. So I'm not blaming anybody. But so how can they find the true ELF provider?
Yeah, Synergy Academy is where most people, if they've been trained through the Synergy Academy or through Derek Nordstrom, that's one thing you want to look for. I'll send you a link. It is a little bit trickier to find. There is the Orlays website has a list of providers, and so normally an Orlays provider, I don't want to say all the time is, but a lot of the times is also has been trained in ALF through Synergy Academy or through Derek. And so I'll send you a link too that you can provide that is a little bit quicker to get to where to find those providers. But yeah, I would just kind of look at their credentialing. What courses have they taken? Have they taken one again through Synergy Academy or through Derek? And like you said, your son's doing well. There's pieces that maybe are missing, and so there's different nuances, and so I think there's good practitioners out there doing good things, and so. I wanted to stay true to the Derek designs, because that's how they were. When we start deviating from that, we may not get the results that we want. So
yeah, and like you said, when there's so many pieces of the puzzle in terms of how it was developed and for these certain reasons. Now I think when science comes in, sometimes like this is the reason, this is sometimes the things are the way they are because of how they were put together. And like you said, it's more divinely guided, all those pieces play into that. And so, yeah.
And I would say, Derek, he does a lot of research too. And it may not be like an exact, like, hey, the alpha did this, but he'll say, hey, the neurology, we know this point, this is a paper that shows that these things happen neurologically. This is what's helping that, and so he's constantly, I don't think he ever sleeps. I mean, he's constantly looking at things and developing things and reading research. And so there certainly is a lot of research that supports what the ALF does and what we do and what the Orlays, the laser does. And so I think that's where I think we need to be careful, is you can find any research to support anything you want. Right.
Exactly.
I think it's important to see what that research, how the research was done, where it was done. He shared a recent research paper with us out of Brazil, out of South America, where they did a big study on expansion and how it didn't really do anything for any of these kids for sleep apnea. So you have a lot of research that says, yes, it does everything. And then this one was a well done study showing that, maybe there's more to it than just developing an arch, right? And that's certainly something I've seen in my own patients, right? I have patients that, again, like I said, have done well and some that haven't. And so I think we have to be just had this thought. I think we have to be really careful, and this is super hard to do, but I think we have to be really careful not to label these kids, oh, well, you have a problem, or you're screwed up, or you have this going on, because then they start to internalize that, and that can be a trauma. And so, in all of everything I've tried to do, I always try to not say that they are a problem. They're not a problem. We just want to help them to get to a certain point, right? It can be really tricky to use the right words to encourage these kids and to let them know that they're enough, that they're good.
Exactly.
So,
oh, I love that so much. And that's how I feel as well. Even things with my own health, I try not to put a label on it, because for me it's fluid and things can change in a second, in a miracle, And so, but when we subscribe to it and we believe it, that that's the way it is, it's never going to change, then it will never change.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very cool.
Definitely fluid, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, just even my own kids. Oh, all three. Yeah. They're all so different. It's amazing. Now I want to ask, okay, because let's talk a little bit here. So the going to like the Derek Nordstrom thing, having this kind of a spiritual experience, have you noticed any changes in I don't know, in your belief system or anything throughout this entire process in your journey?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been spiritual person. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I served a 2-year mission. So we talked to a lot of people about Christ and how he can help us in our life. And I think as I've gone on this journey and had those experiences with Derek, I think all it has done for me, I guess I shouldn't say all it has done, but it just, every time it just confirms more and more and more to me, solidifies more that we have a Heavenly Father that loves each one of us, and we are divine, and it's awesome. It's awesome. We're special, and we're unique, and each person's unique, and that's okay. So yeah, I think it just brought home that we're small in this big world, and if we can help people, we can help them. So
yes. And the other day it was kind of funny. We were driving in the car, and my husband coaches basketball, and he was talking about something, and he said, and you're about, I don't even know what it was, about a kid or about a coach or whatever. He said, and you're not special. And I wanted to say, honey, we're all special. And this is not like about everybody getting a trophy at the end. Yeah. It's literally, we all have something to contribute beautifully to this world. And the hope is that we all realize that and is able to bring that collectively to everybody, because we are divine and we do have beautiful gifts to give. And so through your work and what you're doing is allowing these kids to, come into their body, know who they are more, trust who they are. And that is so beautiful work right there.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to see kids start to get these little personalities. They'll come in and they'll be kind of shy, kind of reserved, and then certain amount of time in, we're telling dad jokes, we're goofing with them, and it's just, I think there's a trust there too. But it's a fun environment, and they know that. I hope they know that man, we want them to just be successful and succeed, and so that's super fun when they can come in and it's a place they want to come to and they enjoy coming to. I don't ever want a kid to feel like, oh man, I have to go to the dentist. That place, smells, or it's terrible, all those.
Or there's like the
bland,
or there's the bland white walls behind.
The bland white walls. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So we want it to be fun and not just bland and white.
Exactly. Oh gosh, that's so funny. So can you pinpoint any specific miracles that you've had along your journey?
Oh man, I think there's to pinpoint one that would be tricky, be hard.
Or
I think it's a lot of I like to call them, or I once heard them called tender mercies. I think there's a lot of little tender mercies that have happened along the way, and there's times where I'll get super discouraged. I mean, you can even ask my team. I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? It's not, I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, or patients aren't as committed, or what did I do wrong? And so you certainly start to have those doubts and what's happening. And then you have one come along that just is super awesome. And I like recent baby lays I did. 4-month-old little boy, just sweet little boy. um, I was treating an older brother with an ALF, and he's just doing amazing. Chillest kid ever, so chill. He's just an awesome kid. So I knew mom was having a baby. I'd mentioned to dad, hey, if there's any trouble with nursing, any of those things, we can help through this through baby lays. And so, long story short, we started treating baby. So he was more of kind of a muncher, didn't really latch and not very good. And so came in for first treatment. So I did the first baby lays treatment on him. I'll usually do that treatment, and then I'll leave the room, let mom nurse for a minute. My assistant stays in there, and every time the mom goes, "Whoa, like this is different. This is different." And then they'll never fit. They'll say, "Hey, assistant," they're like, "Hey, look at this. Look at how good this is." The upper lip flares, comes up over the latch. I mean, right away the latch is amazing, and they're like, "That's cool." So I'll leave for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll come back and get the report from mom. They're like, "Yeah, he nursed well. It felt better. Didn't hurt." And this particular boy, we laid him down on her lap and kind of playing with him, and I always kind of loved that part where we can interact with him. And he was sitting there, and he goes, and his tongue went to the roof of his mouth, and he kind of did a pop thing. And the mom said, he has never ever done that. And so
Aw.
that's where that neurology kind of kicked in, and he's like, "Hey, I have this tongue and I can use it now." And so he was one that he wasn't gaining weight, kind of just stalled out. So he was working with lactation specialists, not really getting anywhere. So I did that first treatment. He came back for the second. Mom said he'd gained a half a pound, was eating really well. Lactation specialist was like, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." Did the second treatment, came back for a third. At the third one, she said he had doubled his birth weight, was doing amazing. And so just after, 3 sessions, he just was doing so well. Super happy baby. He let me do all the stuff, and it was just so much fun. And mom is so grateful that, she went for a tongue tie consultation. She had scheduled it. And then, I think she's a very in tune person too, and she just thought, I'm gonna wait on the release. Let's just see. Let's ride this out, see how it goes. And he's functioning really well. He's gaining weight. He's eating efficiently, and so that's it. It's a little miracle. It's awesome. So it's just things like that are just so rewarding. And these kids in ALFs who are over time the parents go, "Oh yeah, just their faces have changed, and I like how they look, and they're sleeping a little bit, or their mouth's shut more." And my son the other day, this is another one I hadn't thought of, but I gave him that trauma release for his neck. He'd done some myo. Like all parents, we were good, but could have been better. We're all human. And he said, "Dad, my tongue goes up there more often than it used to, just because it goes up there now like it's supposed to." And I thought, huh. So there's just little things like that kind of keep me going on those days where I'm like, oh, it's not working. I
Yeah.
don't know everything I should know. I'm not learning enough. I can't, so those little things kind of keep us, all right, let's keep trugging along. We can figure it out. We can do it.
Exactly. And I think the other thing that came to mind when you were talking is like this oral lace or baby lace may be a really good option for like this toddler age, or even children who, I've heard of some kids that like, I don't know that they're going to be able to do the release because of behaviors or sensitivity or whatever. Like you said, this may be the point A to point B, oh, you just told me that earlier, but
sure.
this may be the piece of the puzzle that gets them to a place where when a release needs to happen, it can happen more smoothly. And, the toddler age, unless there's a lot of trouble happening, usually they're not going to do that because, kids aren't compliant with the exercises or whatever. So it sounds like that might be a really good piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. I think it can make it so that release is more conservative, right? So their tongue's moving better, doing what it should be doing, and so that release can be more conservative. I think there's another provider, in our area that he's had a couple kids that have kind of stalled out, and he knows I do orlays. He's like, "Hey, you do orlays on these kids," and so they've come in. The one kid, I couldn't even hardly kind of touch around his tongue or kind of get under his tongue. The other provider said it was even kind of hard to get the appliance even in his mouth. And so after about, I think it was about 3 or 4 sessions, I could get the tip of the laser underneath his tongue. I could do just about anything I wanted to, and he had no aversion to that.
Wow.
Where when I first saw him, he was like, wanted to push it away with his tongue, or there was a gag, or, so I think a lot of times that gag reflex, we've been told in the past, oh, they're doing that because they're protecting their airway. Well, no, I think it's more that it's function. They don't know how to use it. And when they feel something that's strange or foreign, the tongue doesn't know how to react. So it has that gag sensation, to where when you can make those sensations feel, normalized and it's okay, then that gag reflex starts to diminish. And so with this kid, after like 4 or 5, and even the other provider, he was like, holy cow, this is wild. I can actually adjust the appliance and get in his mouth and do things. And so for sure there's helping these kids, again, make that connection. They haven't worked that tongue right. And when you look at development, in utero, the tongue's developing way, way, way early. I was going to look it up before I got on here, but it's like right about the time of the heart, or right after, right before. It's very, very early on in those first few weeks of development. And so the tongue's working early on, the baby's swallowing amniotic fluid. It's working. And so if it's not working, then we got to help it work after it. So, but for sure, the oralays can help make that connection, make it easier. And certainly some kids still need a release. If they've got a tie clear out to the tip, we've got to get that released. And I'm certainly not opposed to doing releases. If they need it, they need it. And if we need to make a surgical intervention, we need to. I also think that getting the function and that neurology working a little better helps with that. And so I've done oralays pre-release, post-release with another provider in town, because I'll be seeing him. I'll refer to him for the release, and we'll do a couple oralays before, he'll do release, we'll do it after. It can help the healing. And so there's a lot of good it can do.
Wow, that's so amazing. I just I feel like this will be part of my journey to explore this oralase and an ALF. I definitely feel like that will happen at some point. So I don't think that we're done chatting when I press stop here, but some place down in the future. So
for sure.
So if people would like to reach you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so I've got 2 practices. Millennium Family Dental is my one practice, and then McMillan Family Dental is my other practice. I also have another practice that we've started with my business partner called Innovative Sleep and TMJ Center. And so we do some TMJ and sleep appliances there. And so the hope at a certain point in time is to be able to expand that practice to include, myofunctional therapists, biophoton, these other kind of innovative things that can really help our patients. And so, reaching out to, one of those locations, and we can schedule you and do consultations and visit for sure.
That sounds amazing. And yes, I'll put the websites in the show notes so you can see that there. So
Awesome.
Is there anything else you want to say, Dr. Jake, before we're done today?
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun to reconnect again and have a conversation with you. So super fun.
I love it. Okay, let's go to the final question. So what advice do you have to help others see the miracles in their life?
Oh man, I don't know. I think take a moment and just be calm. Just reflect. My wife's been trying to get me to do some more meditation stuff along with my biophoton and grounding. My wife's getting into these other things that I swore I would never do. I'm like, no, that's crazy woo stuff. Not doing that. But as I've gotten older and wiser, I think those are important. So I think being able to reflect upon each day, taking a minute to look back and, where did I have some guidance there? Or, what things went well and if they didn't, how can I learn? But I think that's what's helped me is just to slow down and have that meditation time and just to reflect on family and how awesome that we are.
Yeah. No, totally. It's so funny. In my practice, I have one day a week where it's just silence. So you come in, you can just sit or lay or whatever, and it's just an hour of silence. And because in my house, I don't ever get that. And I know that there's other people in their homes that don't get that as well. But that silence can provide so much information and integration of the things that we're coming into contact with. And someone had asked about, so is it meditation? And I'm like, yes. But it's not guided because we have enough people telling us what we need to do all day long.
That's so true. So true.
I love that for you. Well, I think your wife is really onto something, and you probably should listen to her.
Yeah, she is. I married way over my head, for sure. She's amazing, and she's put up with me for 25 years, so that's good. 30 years, I guess. Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. So
it is. She's awesome.
I love it. Well, Dr. Jake, I'm so thankful that you're able to come on and give out all this great information. And I am very confident that people are going to use it and use it to impact their life. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Been fun.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Miracle in Time. If you would like to explore a theme or know someone perfect for this podcast, please fill out a form on yourlightllc.com/podcast. If you would like to learn more about my services, you can visit the website at yourlightllc.com. I want you to remember that with all life's ups and downs, you are divinely held and guided throughout your journey. Don't miss out on this miracle in time.